Well, psychedelic means mind manifesting. That's what the word means. And it's deliberately vague in a certain way. There are many terms for psychedelics. And, they used to be called hallucinogens. That was the accepted term, meaning they caused hallucinations. Well, not really, or sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. They used to be called psychotomimetics, meaning that they mimic psychosis. And again, not really. I mean, they induce altered states, which in superficial ways may resemble psychosis. In superficial ways, in other ways, they may resemble mystical experience. So, and there's a whole list of things, psychodysleptics, and, the fact that there's so much nomenclature about psychedelics, none of which is adequate, tells you how slippery this concept is. So I like the term psychedelic, even though it's now accepted in biomedical literature. I like it, even though it's got all this 60s baggage associated with it, but it's the most accurate one in that it manifests the mind. It's going to manifest the mind. How it's going to do that is an open question. But so psychedelic is, a good term. And then, you can get, these are all psychoactive. You can get sticky. Sometimes they say, well, true psychedelics only work on this subset of serotonin receptors called the serotonin 2A receptors. You can get kind of narrow. So things technically like ibogaine and salvia divinorum, MDMA, these are not psychedelics. I mean, they're psychotropic, psychoactive, but not psychedelics in this strict pharmacological sense. The true psychedelics are LSD, DMT, psilocybin, mescaline, these other tryptamines that interact with serotonin. So serotonin 2A receptors seem to be the target that all these psychedelics have in common.
Right, and so they have a very distinct effect than, say, an MDMA or
Yes.
or an alcohol or a cocaine or something. It's a very different effect.
And whole different pharmacology involving, right. Well, MDMA involves serotonin, but cocaine works on dopamine, another neurotransmitter. Nicotine works on acetylcholine. We have about 50 different kinds of neurotransmitter systems in the brain, in the body. And, we know of drugs that affect every one of these.
Right. And the psychedelics have a certain type of experience profile as opposed to the rest. And people have asked me before about these substances, and so what I usually say is that it's a zero-sum game with the substances. If there is some type of upside, there's usually some type of downside.
Of course.
And in our typical Western culture, we're used to, for example, with alcohol, you drink it and you have usually some type of a pleasant upside, this effect that it has. And then the next day, you end up paying for it.
Right.
You can kind of argue that with cocaine, sometimes with MDMA, where you just have a really tough day the next day because your serotonin's down. But I always say with ayahuasca, you usually pay upfront or during with the psychedelics. As in, I sometimes have difficult experiences along sometimes with really powerful experiences. But in a way, it doesn't necessarily become addictive the way that some of these other drugs.
It's anything but addictive.
Right.
I mean, psychedelics are, if for one thing, they're used to treat addictions. They can help people overcome their dependence on other substances. But psychedelics themselves are not addicting, quite the contrary, because the experiences are so impactful. You have to make a conscious decision to go back to it, and some people may never go back to it, and that's okay. People can benefit from a life, have a lifetime benefit from a few encounters, 1 or 2 encounters with psychedelics, if they're particularly impactful. So you have, dependence is not the problem. This I mean, I suppose there are always exceptions. I don't know anyone who you would call addicted to psychedelics, you know. I mean, this microdosing thing, which is becoming kind of faddish, maybe that's a form of addiction. But I'm a little skeptical about microdosing. I can see where there might be benefits, but I think that I mean, it's okay to microdose if people perceive benefits. People shouldn't forget that just around the corner is a world of wonder. And they should peek into that once in a while to remind themselves just exactly what we're dealing with here. This is not like something you take, you know, this is powerful medicine. And in some ways, microdosing doesn't do it justice.